It is said that the final thought upon death decides the path of the following rebirth or even liberation from rebirth altogether. What does this really mean?
Our everyday, every minute, every second thought defines our next moment. So for consciousness, shedding of the body, acquiring a new body is just transitory points. Consciousness itself goes on living, whether part of a collective within a dispersed sense as a unit or a part of the collective is the same thing. So obviously, most of the people in this day and age die in agony. So they don't actually know what death is. And because they don't know what death is, so they don't understand what life is for. Most of the people start the process of decomposition and rotting from the moment they reached probably the age of somewhere 7 to 12. So from that point on, the moment they hit puberty especially, and especially taking into account our current diets and lifestyles, so people are just hubs of various kinds of energy. So it's not just their body in which they live, they are also host to a lot of other sort of smaller entities like microbes and parasites and all kinds of things on a physical level. And they're also host of a lot of parasitic and corrupt energy on the subtle level, because so taking this into account, our life, in fact, is some sort of a way to decomposition. In Kali Yuga, life is this moment of being born and then exerting oneself or exhausting one's energy potential, purging out the corruption and rotting alive. That's why this is the age of, many times people call it the age of death. And the age of death is because we are dying during life. We're decomposing during life. Cancer, all different kinds of skin diseases, eruptions on the skin, anomalies that people experience, like funguses and all this. This is just eruption of the corruption within themselves on the physical body, or through the physical body. So they don't live actually. They don't know what life is. The majority of people don't know what life is. We arrive to true life only when we awakened and refined ourselves to a certain degree where corruption has no more power over us. We can observe it, we can see it, and we can continue dissolving it. Then we can say that we start life. That's when, in the spiritual sense, we can be called twice born or born again. Because until then, and then our consciousness pushes us to look for healthier alternatives, to maintain ourselves. Our consciousness is reflected in our body. Our diet reflects usually our state of consciousness. Not forced diet, not the diet that you are told by some false guru to follow. The diet which is natural to your conscious level is the one that you feel like eating it. You feel like having it. You shouldn't be forcing anything upon yourself, because your body is but a mirror of your consciousness. Your body is but a reflection of what you carry within. If your body is corrupt, is sick, rotting, cancerous, although they say that every body carries cancer cells, everyone's consciousness is corrupt. You may say the same thing. Everyone's consciousness is corrupt. If you pity yourself, if you like to pity party, if you're constantly harboring negative emotions, sadness, despair, or you're anxious, you have all kinds of problems because your consciousness has these holes within itself. It doesn't know what to fill it with. It starts filling itself with, filling in with different types of foods or substances. Even if you become a fanatic of healthy food, your consciousness is very corrupted, because food is not supposed to be a cult. Food is not supposed to be something that defines you or creates another identity of it. Food is just a means of nourishment. So if you have a healthy being, your diet cannot be unhealthy. You simply cannot do it to yourself. And yet you do it spontaneously. You eat what is natural, what is right, what you perceive as pure at this point of time. And that's it. You don't create a cult out of it. You don't create like a wow out of it. You don't create another identity about it. Otherwise, the majority of people feel this obsession. They're basically addicts to food. We don't need to eat even twice a day. But we believe we should because this is what the system says. But the majority of consciousness is so dependent on food because they don't have any other access or any other source of energy. They don't have any access to spiritual energy or don't know what that is. So they need to have emotional and physical satisfaction from something, food or activities, because they don't know the other source of nourishment. And I wouldn't recommend anyone to start eating all of a sudden less, because you are what you eat, what you are, or you are what you eat. Your food is the reflection of your consciousness. If you force yourself, it means you go against your current consciousness. It means you're not facing the corruption within consciousness that pushes you to eat this many times or this kind of food, or which pushes you to create ego about what you eat or what you don't eat. So, yes, we don't know what life is. Life is just at the moment just a process of rotting. Everyone rots alive until the rotting reaches such a level where there is pain of decomposition. That's called agony. They're given morphine or some other substance, and that's it. So they leave body in agony. That's not death. True death is just like life. You can enter physical, you can exit, you can go and be with in your subtle body. That's life. But this is agony. And so, of course, some religious probably people created this theory that whatever you think, how can you think in agony? How can you think in pain? All your thoughts are to just come out of this body because pain is unbearable. And that's what happens. But because they inject so many drugs, the person's consciousness is so drugged that they don't even know what is happening. They just slip out and wander or roam around like ghosts until someone addresses them or tries to pray for them, supposedly pray, but like tries to remind them that they need to leave. And many cannot even leave. That's why we're not only living like corpses, we're living amongst dead souls, ghosts. This is Kali Yuga. Hello, welcome. Please, don't be delusional about the age. Call things their names, call people their names, or don't call them at all. So, do you think that you're living in a beautiful world? Yes, the natural world is beautiful, but we stopped even to notice that beauty. We can't notice it anymore because we're so focused on our own pains. Our existence is painful because we're constantly contracted, suppressed, unable to express ourselves naturally, openly. We hide, and we spend so much more energy on all these hiding activities and suppression that we no longer have any energy to just enjoy anything anymore. That's what our supposedly life, but it's not life, it's existence. And that death is not death either. It's agony. It's unconscious slipping out. And yeah, once they slipped out, they might wonder, oh, people need me. I need to be present there when my daughter gets married or my son gets married. And so they stick around. But they feel maybe lost. And so they need to attach to the living beings, connect to them to feel their warmth. Or maybe they'll still remember me. The victimhood kicks in. There's so much heaviness in many souls, they can't just simply let go, because ascending for incarnation is also very rare at this point now. Because that's it, souls became so heavy, they can't ascend anymore, they're just roaming around once they slip out. So not so many souls incarnate in this day and age anymore. It's just we're like living in a cremation ground, worshipping demon Kali. That's what the name of the age, Kali Yuga, or we worship everything which is corrupt, Iron Age, everything that rusts, we worship that. We don't realize the nature of life because no one is there to tell us. And then we choose to believe in some kind of fairy tales, spiritual fairy tales, religious fairy tales. Because after all, consciousness still wants to hold on to something. So we entertain these fairy tales while we rot during this life. And then during the agony, we're afraid because it's the unknown. And so we start remembering the fairy tales, the religious and spiritual fairy tales onto which we hold. Oh, this is the last salvation hope. And then we start hallucinating. And this is how our salvation in the heavens works. And then we are disembodied. And then we don't know how to proceed because we're so heavy. We're heavy with emotions. What is my son going to do? What is my daughter? What are my grandchildren are going to do? What about my work? So much worry. Do you think it changes after that? No. Yes, maybe in previous Yuga or something, people incarnated, yeah, they had a thought that, okay, they would like this next life to be better, to maybe do something. And so maybe they had that thought through which they would kind of create an intention and a goal for incarnation. But many souls maybe wouldn't like to be incarnated. But some people had unfinished business, so they chose. Now there is no choice. It's by compulsion. If the soul is not too heavy and can kind of start letting go, slowly, maybe it can ascend and go again into incarnation. Many souls are so burdened by traumas and abuse and, self-pity and unresolved issues with others that they can't ascend, they're just roaming around. That's why people notice more and more paranormal activities, because it's all coming to the surface. Occult activities, because all these heavy emotions, negativity, it already became like a living cluster of something. Energy, living energy, dark energy, which is coming to the surface. True death is liberating. And people who truly die, if they choose, they will still come back. But because they have a subtle body or other bodies, they don't necessarily need to go through the birthing process. They may connect to anyone, to any consciousness experience through any body, not in an oppressive way, just through a specific connection if there is a need. But otherwise, there is no attachment to this particular dimension or reality. So that is called freedom. And so there is no such an actual idea anymore of death or no death. It's just like you come out of one dimension into the other. And so you may call it death, or you may call it just an existence on multi-dimensional level. So again, this death and life is just a human notion, corrupt, limited understanding of the flow of conscious being through different cycles. Well, that's it.